Hey traders, this is Christian Promhertz, Tribeca Trade Group, and it is October 31st, and this is the end of month review, P&L review, something that I do every month and have been doing every month for 2020 and will continue to do. Number one, before I kind of get into the numbers, the review step is an important step in the trading process. I think it's one of those steps that is not talked about that much. I think a lot of times traders and investors are focused on returns and so forth and looking for the next trade setup, but really a lot of over time, what is needed too is to improve your process, right? To refine what you're doing, figure out where your strengths lie, and basically play to those strengths. And also knowing where your weaknesses lie too, right? There's certain times where the market is definitely not going to be on your side of your trading system. So those are kind of the tougher areas that a lot of people don't talk about that much, where you really want to lighten up on risk and not get yourself overextended during those times, and also making sure that you kind of get through those times and conserve your confidence too, so that you can capitalize when the trading environment is a little bit better. So that's kind of where I am for this particular month. I thought this month was a difficult month to trade. There's basically two parts of this month, just like September. But here's my P&L for the month. October was not a great month for me. Was one of the few months this year that I've been down. However, still P&L for the year is up over 200%. So while this was not a particularly fun month for me, and I think for most traders, especially the second half of the year, unless you're really pressing to the short side, I think more of a difficult year. So, a difficult month. But overall, still, very happy with year-to-date P&L, and I think that's kind of the big takeaway here. So let's get into the nitty-gritty and the my review and observations. So I've talked about the review step, how I think it's very important. It's one of those things that you want to make sure that you're progressing as a trader and not making, we're all going to make mistakes, in terms of in terms of daily trades and so forth, right? There's nobody who's going to have 100% winners and zero losers. It's really how you handle those situations that are a little bit more difficult. And when you do have losers, that's the old saying of you can be wrong, but you don't want to stay wrong. And I think that's also important to kind of take away where you did have those situations in the month, and to try to if not completely eliminate mistakes, but really to get to the point where you're limiting them and making sure that they're not that large. So let's talk about one thing that I think is important here. September and October, they're the weakest seasonal months of the year. They're now behind us. This year's a little bit different because we still have the election in front of us, so that could add a little bit more of volatility, obviously, in the short term. But getting through September and October, it's a big thing. What I like to refer to as survive and advance. Right? These are months too where, for me, even though I'm certainly not happy with the P&L for the month, I've had situations previously where these 2 months have really given me a hard time. And so it's kind of baby steps, to make sure that you are improving and kind of getting through. I mean, these were 2 months where you could see for the S&P and for NASDAQ that, that's 2 months in a row that they've been down. So, again, it's one of those things where this part of the year is very difficult. So limiting your losses are important. And if you remember, for September was not an awesome month for me either, but I actually outperformed the market a little bit. This was the next bullet that I've got here is kind of similar to what happened in September, right? The first half of the month, or the first portion of the month, was strong, and that was right in the beginning of the month for September, just basically the first week. And then we spent a lot of time kind of, moving down, a small bounce there, and then we kind of continued down, right until about the end of the month for September. October, a little bit different. October, the first couple weeks of the month, were strong, kind of left off where we started, at the end of September, which kind of got us out of that short-term downtrend. And then we started to slip in the middle of the month, and then that really kind of accelerated to the downside the last week of October. So, and if we look at this in terms of, something that I've been talking about a lot is this 1 hour chart, which gave us, gave some really good signals, right, in terms of, what this kind of showed us back in September, right? And I talked a bit about this in the Friday video too. But once we lost the short-term uptrend, we definitely had signals along the way. Once we regained the uptrend at the end of September, and then we basically held that up until right around that midpoint of October, about the 15th. And then once we slid below it, there was trends in both directions, an uptrend and a steady downtrend, which really kind of picked up, towards the end of October, right, the last month. So there you have it, and we'll kind of see where November goes. But I just wanted to illustrate there that it was pretty clean cut, I think, this month. Couple weeks of uptrend, couple weeks of downtrend, and signals along the way. And you can review Friday's video, where I kind of talked about, more in depth where those signals came from. So for me, kind of coming back to how I play this month, always what I try to do is play and trade to my strengths and avoid when the market is not giving me, when there is not great signals. I also talked about in Friday's video, not only was the trend up in the beginning of October, but we also saw a breadth expansion for the first couple weeks in October. That flipped, to when basically where price action broke to the downside of this value area, which was here, as well as broke the 200 period moving average as well, right? So those coincided and gave a signal. In addition to that, we started to see the breadth flip, right? So we've talked about how kind of pressing a little bit when the wind is at your back, right? When breadth is expanding, when the trend is going in the right direction, and tapering off and being more conservative when it goes the other way, right? So that's what I mean in terms of playing to the strengths and avoiding when it's not. Now, I am a trend trader, so those are situations where I try to capitalize when the market is moving in the right direction and breadth is also in my favor. One of the things that I talked about a couple times this month, when we did see this begin to break down, right, especially in this week, these are things that I had said in the trading room was, hey, try to take a break. Of course, I always try to joke around a little bit. And I mentioned, going basically pumpkin picking, right, for the second half of October. We knew that we were going to also have a lot of events that were going to make trading a little bit difficult. But really, I know my jokes are not great, but I think that really is a situation to kind of capitalize on, to take some time away from the screens when they are, when it's not fitting your system or your model. Now, I can't do that per se, because I am running a trading room, so I'm going to be there present and try to kind of look for things and guide traders along the way. But really what I was telling a lot of members to do was don't be afraid to kind of, while this is not a great trading environment, take some time off. And again, if I wasn't, managing a trading room, I would have done that as well. Those are great times to kind of say, back off a little bit and wait for the market to be a little bit of a better environment, because it's not always going to give you a great environment. That's just how trading and investing goes over time. I would also say there's also adjustments, right? So we talked a lot about making some small adjustments. So, for example, that's avoiding, trying to avoid options in choppy markets or downtrending, short-term downtrending markets. It's also watching your position size, right? Toning down how much you're taking. There's also a principle there too when the VIX starts to rise, right? When the VIX and volatility start to increase, right? You don't need to be taking the same position size for when like the VIX is around like a 20 to a 25 to what we started to see at the end of the month when the VIX got over 30, right? You do not need the same position size to have the same amount of return or in this case risk. So toning down position size and then also toning down the number of positions too. Those are the adjustments to make when the trading environment changes a bit. All right, and then so we talked about that. Keep less positions. Also being happy with singles and doubles. I can tell you from my standpoint, I had some trades that I would take off, one target, profitable target, second target would be profitable. Then the last portion of the trade, as the market kind of did one of these situations where we bounced a little bit and then the bottom fell out, that third portion of the trade became, either I took that off back at cost or a little bit below cost, right? So still a profitable trade a lot of times, but the last portion of it really became a dent into the overall trade because the market was not cooperating. All right, so be a little bit happier with singles and doubles. That this type of market is harder to get those triples and home runs. So here's for me, going back to my performance for the month of October. I actually had, when I broke down and looked at the number of trades that did well versus the number of trades that did poorly, I actually had a lot more winners this month than losers. So how did that translate into a negative month? Because some of the losers were just the position size was a little bit too large. And they were also with options. All four of those losing positions were done with options. Most of my winners on the top were done with stock, right? So just as I had said, be careful with options when the market changes. I got caught up in a little bit of that too, right? Things just did not work for me, and what I would need to do a little bit better there is either eliminate the use of the options for swing trades. Again, I think for day trades, it's fine. It's a different situation. But as things kind of move and progress through the month, more in that downtrend, things just didn't materialize. There's a couple names in there too that they didn't go up or down. They just, because the market, because they didn't go up, that you have that theta decay in options too. And I did get caught with one big loser with VRTX. That was a biotech name that they had a drug that did not go well, and basically the bottom fell out. So that one hurt me. So that's a situation sometimes with biotech stocks. And this one I was holding stock. So this kind of beat me up a little bit. That was a decent move from 270 down to 220. So the situation of having a couple trades like this go very poorly, and it was a gap down in this situation. So sometimes you do get a little bit unlucky, or they do happen, right? It's great when things go gap up and you've got a nice winner on your hands, but every once in a while you're going to get caught in something like this where it's not giving you much of a signal, and all of a sudden the bottom falls out. So again, going back to position sizing too, maybe I had on a little bit too large of a position in that particular one. So all in all, more winners this month. less number of losers, but they impacted me a little bit differently, right? I had some bigger losers. That's an important concept too, in the review step is to make sure that you are limiting your losers in the sense of, letting those winners run, which again, it was difficult to do that because the market just changed very quickly. And then, of course, making sure that you're keeping tight stops and not letting those losers turn out to big losers. All right. So a couple adjustments for me, of course, is to limit the trading of options when the market changes. When we start to get more chop or even a downtrend, as we had in the second part of the month, try to eliminate the use of those. And then, of course, keeping the position smaller, keeping the quantity of positions smaller, and also stepping outside of the market a little bit, right? Meaning, just getting away from the screens and realizing that you don't have to trade as much, every day, or even skip a couple days where the environment is not a great environment. Again, I think that's the hardest concept, really, is to just separate yourself a little bit from when the market is not giving you opportunities, and take a break. All right. So I included the best practices in here, right? No big short-term option risk. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. Don't, even though if the market is not giving you opportunities, don't force trades. Don't put on bigger trades just because you're looking at your P&L and trying to improve that alone. Leg into positions, of course, especially on the option side, if you are trading options, going in, too large on the onset of a trade could really kind of back you into a corner. So leave yourself some flexibility. Watching your risk first instead of return, right? I've always, have this conversation with newer traders that typically want to make the same amount every trading session. I could tell you that it doesn't work that way, right? Just, looking at my P&L over the year, right, you're going to see that I've had months that you're really going to make some great returns, and then other months that are just not going to be there for you because the market just isn't giving you great opportunities. All right. Use options tactically. Same thing with option flow. And then just a quick summary in terms of my style, just so that you can kind of see where I derive a lot of my returns from, is when the market is trending in the right direction for me. All right. And everybody has different styles and so forth. I think it's important to develop your own trading process and your own trading plan, right, to capitalize on where your personality really tends to kind of lead you to, instead of just trying to copy another trader, right? That has to be developed over time. So give yourself time and be patient with developing that and figuring out where your strengths lie. All right. It doesn't matter, in terms of what level trader you are. Everybody still needs to improve as you go along the way, right? And again, this review step is important to figure out those places where you do need to improve. All right, and there's a couple other points in here, but I think overall, just to kind of just hammer home the point here for the end of the month, is that September and October, these are sometimes for me places where I could really kind of screw up my year a little bit. I think overall, while again I'm not happy with the performance for the month, it's really overall, if you look at some of the months that I've turned in for this year, it's kind of just a little bit of a small detour, rather than getting really sidetracked, right, for the year. So I'm kind of just happy that we're getting a lot of these events out of the way that I think were going to be troublesome. We just basically have to get past this election. And I think that we're really going to see some good opportunities for the rest of the year. But again, it's that patience, right? And letting them develop, waiting for the signal, waiting for the trend, waiting for the market and breadth to improve, and then we can go ahead and capitalize on those for the rest of the year. But again, I'm quite excited about the rest of the year. Always getting through this area of the fall in the year is a trouble area. So again, it's all about survive in advance, and now we can hopefully get to some better trading environment for the rest of the year. All right, guys, thanks for watching the video, and I'll have the macro and watch list video out for you guys on Sunday.